It was one of those cold, quiet Friday nights in February when the city feels half asleep. I'd gone out for drinks with a few coworkers at this small rooftop bar downtown, nothing wild, just a few cocktails, some music, and laughter that I hadn't realized I needed until then. By the time I decided to head home, it was close to 1:30 a.m., and the streets were slick from a light drizzle that had started earlier. I remember standing outside the bar entrance, pulling my jacket tighter as I opened the Uber app. I wasn't drunk, just a little buzzed, and I remember double-checking everything like I always did. The app said my driver's name was Michael, driving a black Toyota Camry, license plate 7DLT493. I even read it out loud to make sure I'd remember. I don't know why that stuck with me so clearly. Within a minute, a black Camry rolled up to the curb. The headlights flashed once, and I saw the same license plate, 7DLT493. The driver leaned over, smiled, and said, "Hannah?" I nodded, relieved that it was quick and easy. The city can feel eerie at night when you're alone, and I just wanted to get home. I climbed into the back seat, the door clicking shut behind me with that hollow sound that always makes my stomach tighten a little. The car smelled faintly of pine air freshener and cigarette smoke, not fresh, more like the kind of scent that's been living in the upholstery for years. The driver looked older than his profile picture, maybe late 40s instead of mid-30s, but the resemblance was there. He had a baseball cap pulled low, a small scar on his cheek, and the kind of polite smile people use when they don't want to seem threatening. We pulled out onto the road, and I remember checking the map on my phone just to make sure the route matched. It did. He was following the exact path home. I even remember texting my roommate, "I'm home." Uber just picked me up, black Camry. She sent a thumbs up emoji, and that was that. For the first 10 minutes, it was uneventful. The city lights blurred past the windows, and I half zoned out, scrolling through Instagram. Then I noticed something weird. The driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, not just casual looks, but quick, repeated glances. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I was being paranoid. I looked back down at my phone and tried to ignore it. Then, maybe 15 minutes into the ride, I got a notification. "Your driver Michael is arriving now." I froze. My screen showed the same car, the same license plate, the same route, but the app said my driver was still on his way. My stomach dropped. I blinked, thinking it had to be a glitch, but then I saw the live map. It showed my real Uber pulling up outside the bar I'd just left. I whispered to myself, "What the hell? The man driving didn't notice me looking at my phone, or maybe he did and didn't care." My mind was racing. If this wasn't my Uber, who the hell was I in the car with? I quietly took another look at his phone on the dashboard. There was no Uber app running. Just Google Maps. No ride interface, no trip timer, nothing. That's when my heartbeat started pounding in my ears. I tried to stay calm, forcing my voice to sound normal. "Hey, how long till we get there?" He looked up in the mirror, that faint smile still there. "Not long. About 10 more minutes." But his tone, it wasn't casual. It was flat. Almost rehearsed. I thought about calling someone, but I didn't want to make him suspicious. I texted my roommate again instead, "Can you track my location?" and kept my phone low in my lap. Then I noticed something else. The streets outside didn't look familiar anymore. We were supposed to be heading north, but I saw the highway sign flash by, I-95 South. He was driving away from the city. My voice came out shaky. "Hey, I think we're going the wrong way." He didn't answer. Just kept driving. The GPS on my phone showed the little blue dot moving in the opposite direction from home. Every instinct in me screamed to do something, anything, but I felt frozen. I remember staring at the back of his head, watching the way his shoulders moved slightly as he drove, calm, steady, like he'd done this 1,000 times. I tried to sound firm this time. I said, "You're going the wrong way." He exhaled softly, almost like a sigh. "Don't worry, I know a shortcut." Those words, I can still hear them. The road got darker, emptier. No more buildings, just trees and distant headlights. I could feel my hands start to shake. I looked down at my phone again, trying to quietly turn on share live location to my roommate. I hit send, and then the car suddenly slowed down. He pulled over onto the shoulder, and my whole body went rigid. He turned halfway in his seat and looked at me, and for the first time, his smile was gone. His eyes looked flat, lifeless, almost curious. "You shouldn't be on your phone," he said quietly. I tried to play dumb. "Sorry, just texting my friend." He stared at me for a few seconds too long, then turned back around and started driving again. But slower. My pulse was racing so hard I could barely think. I kept glancing at the door handle, wondering if I could jump out if he stopped at a light. But there were no lights. Just darkness and the hum of the tires on the wet road. After a few minutes, I heard the faint sound of my phone buzzing. A text from my roommate, "Why are you on I-95? I didn't reply, I couldn't. The driver's eyes flicked to the mirror again, and I could tell he knew I was panicking. He didn't say anything. Just kept driving. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet, he'd take me somewhere public. Maybe he was just confused. Maybe this wasn't what I thought. But deep down, I knew. Something was very, very wrong. Then, the strangest thing happened. He pulled off the main highway and onto this narrow side road, lined with trees on both sides, no streetlights, no houses. Just darkness. The rain started picking up again, tapping harder against the roof. He slowed down, then stopped. My throat went dry. He turned the car off. For a second, the only sound was the rain. Then, without turning around, he said in a low voice, "I know you're scared. But if you just listen, everything will be fine." That was it. I unbuckled my seatbelt and lunged for the door handle. I yanked it open and bolted into the rain. I didn't even think. I just ran. My heels slipped on the wet asphalt, and I heard his door slam open behind me. I sprinted toward the faint glow of headlights in the distance, another car coming down the road. I waved my arms, screaming for help. The driver slowed down, confused, then stopped completely when he saw me. I ran to the passenger side, pounding on the window. "Please, please, help me." The man behind me was still coming, but slower now. Watching, the person in the other car, an older woman, unlocked the door, and I jumped in, shaking so hard I could barely speak. I pointed behind us, but when she looked, the man had vanished into the trees, gone. She drove me straight to a nearby gas station, where I called the police. My roommate met me there, crying, and I remember barely being able to talk as I tried to explain what had happened. The officers checked the Uber app and confirmed my real driver had been waiting outside the bar the whole time. Whoever picked me up knew my name, my destination, my car's make and plate number. But the police never found him. The car didn't match any registration. The license plate was fake, printed on a laminated sheet. And the name Michael? The real Uber driver said no one else could have known that but the person who had my ride details. To this day, they still don't know how he got them, and sometimes, when I get into a ride late at night, I catch myself checking the plate twice, 3 times. Even then, I can't shake the thought, what if the wrong passenger wasn't me? It's been almost 2 years since that night, and I still can't bring myself to use Uber after dark. Even seeing the icon on my phone makes my chest tighten. People tell me I should be over it by now, but they don't understand. The fear didn't end when I ran from that car. It only got worse afterward. The police took my statement that night, and I remember sitting in the fluorescent light of the gas station, wrapped in a blanket they'd given me. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my body. They asked me the same questions over and over. Are you sure about the license plate? Are you sure about the name? Did he say anything else to you? I answered as best I could, but it all blurred together. I just kept saying the same thing. He knew my name. He knew where I lived. They sent out patrol cars, but of course, by the time anyone got to that stretch of road, he was gone. No trace. No footprints, no tire marks, nothing. Just the damp imprint of where the car had been parked. The next morning, I met with a detective named Sergeant Ramirez at the precinct. He was calm, professional, the kind of person who's seen a lot. He told me they'd run every possible variation of the license plate through the system and found nothing. The plate didn't exist. The VIN number didn't match any record either. It was as if that car had never been real. I showed him the screenshot from my phone, the Uber confirmation with Michael, the exact make and plate. He frowned, then said something that made my stomach twist. "You know, this kind of thing has happened before." He wouldn't tell me more. Just that a few other women in nearby cities had reported being picked up by cars that looked identical to their assigned rides. Same names, same cars. But when police tried to track them down, nothing. Like ghosts. I asked him what they thought. It was hackers? Someone inside Uber? He just sighed and said, "We don't know yet. But whoever it is, they're good." For weeks after, I barely slept. Every night I'd jolt awake, convinced I heard that engine idling outside my apartment. Sometimes I'd get out of bed, pull back the curtain, and stare down at the street. There was never anything there, just empty road, streetlights flickering on wet pavement. But one night, there was. About 3 weeks later, around 3:40 a.m., I woke up to the faint sound of music outside. It was so quiet that at first I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard it again, low, muffled, like a car radio playing through closed doors. I walked to my window and peered through the blinds. There, parked across the street, was a black Camry. My heart just stopped. I couldn't see the plate clearly through the rain, but I swear, it looked the same. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and zoomed in. The number, 7DLT493. The same fake plate, I whispered. No way. It just sat there, engine running, lights off. I stood frozen, staring for what felt like forever. Then, as if it knew I was watching, the headlights flicked on. The beam hit my window directly. I ducked down instinctively, heart hammering, and stayed crouched by the bed, clutching my phone. When I looked again, the car was gone. I called the police right away, but by the time they arrived, there was no car, no sound, no trace. They told me it was probably a coincidence. Maybe someone with the same model car, but I know what I saw. Over the next few months, weird things started happening. Random calls in the middle of the night, no one on the other end, just faint breathing. A few times I'd open my Uber app and see past ride show trips I never took. Different times, different pickup spots. All with the same driver name, Michael. I deleted the app, changed my number, even moved apartments 6 months later. I thought maybe a fresh start would help, but the feeling never went away. Then, last December, I got an email from Uber support. It said, "We're reaching out to confirm your feedback about driver Michael, trip ID number 0839441. We noticed your report was left incomplete. Could you please verify the incident details?" There was no record of me ever filing a report. I contacted their support chat, and after a long exchange, they said no one named Michael had ever been registered under that plate or that driver ID. The person didn't exist in their system at all. That's when I realized something. Whoever it was, he wasn't using Uber to find people. He was finding the people who were using Uber. Somehow, he could see who had requested rides, who was waiting alone, and he was getting there first. Even now, thinking about it makes me feel sick. A few months ago, I got dinner with an old coworker, someone who'd been at that same bar the night it happened. Halfway through the conversation, she mentioned something that made my blood run cold. She said, "You know, it's crazy. When I left that night, I swear I saw your Uber still waiting outside. The driver had your name pulled up on the screen." I asked her if she remembered what he looked like. She said, "Yeah, young guy, maybe early 30s, short hair, nice smile." Why? That description was nothing like the man who'd picked me up. Nothing. She swore it was your name on the phone. Hannah M., same car. Same license plate. That's when it hit me. The man who picked me up wasn't pretending to be my Uber driver. He was pretending to be me. The fake ride, the fake profile, all of it was created under my own name, synced somehow to my real request. That's how he knew everything. That's how he found me before the real car ever arrived. I told this to the police again, but by then, the case had gone cold. There was nothing they could trace, no logs, no data, no fingerprints. It was like he'd wiped himself from existence. Sometimes I wonder if that's why no one ever found him, because maybe there was nothing to find. Maybe the car, the man, the plate, all of it, was never really there in the way I remember. Maybe he wasn't trying to kidnap me. Maybe he was trying to replace me. I've stopped trying to make sense of it. I just know that ever since that night, strange things follow me. Like once, at a red light, a driver in the next lane rolled down his window and said, "Hey, didn't I drive you home last month?" I'd never seen him before. Another time, I got an Uber notification, but I hadn't ordered one. It said, "Your driver is arriving now." It happens every now and then. Randomly. Even though my account's been deleted for over a year, I don't know if it's a glitch or something else. But every time I see that notification, every time I hear a car slow down outside my window, I remember that night on I-95, the rain, the headlights, the voice that said, "If you just listen, everything will be fine." And I can't help but wonder, what if he never stopped looking? It happened last spring, right after midterms. I was a sophomore at a small college just outside Detroit, and that night I'd gone to a friend's birthday party off campus. Nothing crazy, just a few drinks, loud music, and people talking over each other until it was way too late. By the time I left, it was close to 2 a.m., and most of the rides back to campus were either booked or way overpriced. So I opened Lyft, checked the driver's info, name was Daniel, gray Honda Civic, plate CXB9127. His rating was good, like 4.9 stars, and he was only 3 minutes away. I remember thinking, perfect, because the night air had that cold bite to it that seeps through your jacket. When he pulled up, it matched everything exactly, same car, same license. He rolled down the window and called out, "Emily?" His voice was friendly, kind of tired, and I just nodded and got in. He had a disposable coffee cup in the holder and a GPS already set for my dorm. At first, everything felt normal. We made small talk, classes, the weather, the usual rideshare chatter. He said he'd been driving all night and was just about done with his shift. I could see the dark circles under his eyes, and I even felt a little bad for him. The city outside was almost empty, even the traffic lights seemed slower, like they were tired too. About 10 minutes into the ride, we hit a red light, and Daniel glanced down at his phone. He said, "Google says there's construction up ahead. I'm gonna take a shortcut through the industrial side, it'll save us like 10 minutes. I remember hesitating. The industrial side of town was mostly abandoned factories and warehouses. I'd seen it during the day once, and even then it gave me a bad feeling. At night, it was just black, empty streets and flickering sodium lights. Still, I didn't want to be rude. I said, "Oh, okay, sure." He nodded, turned the wheel, and we veered off the main road. Almost immediately, the city noise faded away. No cars, no people, just the steady hum of the tires on cracked pavement. I looked out the window and saw rows of chain-link fences, graffiti-covered walls, and piles of scrap metal silhouetted against the orange glow of distant lights. After a few minutes, I noticed we hadn't passed another vehicle in a while. It was just us, surrounded by empty lots and shadows. Then I heard the click. It was faint, but unmistakable, the sound of all 4 doors locking. My heart stuttered. I looked up. Daniel's face was unreadable, eyes focused on the road. Everything okay? I asked, trying to sound casual, but he didn't answer right away. Then, in a voice that was suddenly much flatter, he said, "Yeah. We just need to make one stop." Every nerve in my body went cold. I said, "What do you mean one stop?" "My dorm's the other way." He didn't respond. Just kept driving. The streetlights were spaced far apart now, so every few seconds we'd plunge into darkness before another dim pull of light caught the car. I could feel my hands start to shake. My phone was in my jacket pocket, but I was terrified he'd notice me reaching for it. I forced out a nervous laugh. Sorry, could you please unlock the doors?" He exhaled slowly through his nose. "You'll be fine," he said. "We're almost there." Almost where? That's when I realized the GPS wasn't showing my dorm anymore. The map was blank. No route, no time estimate, nothing. I watched as he made a slow turn down an even narrower road. No lights. No buildings. Just black. I slipped my hand into my pocket and pulled out my phone as quietly as I could. I texted my best friend Jenna in a Lyft. Driver acting weird. He just locked the doors. My location, I hit share live location and sent it. Then, right after, I heard his voice. "Who are you texting?" I froze. He turned slightly, eyes catching mine in the rearview mirror. There was no friendliness left, just this empty, almost mechanical expression. I stammered, "My friend. She's waiting up for me." He stared for a few seconds, then turned back to the road. "You shouldn't text while someone's driving. It's distracting." I didn't say anything. My palms were slick with sweat. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. A message from Jenna. WTF? I called the cops. Stay calm. I could barely breathe. The road curved around an old chain-link gate with a faded "No trespassing" sign. Beyond it was a huge warehouse, lights off except for a single bulb flickering near the back. The driver slowed the car and turned in. He parked behind the building, engine idling. Then he looked over his shoulder and said, "Stay here. I'll be right back." He got out and shut the door. I heard his footsteps crunching on gravel. That was when panic fully hit me. I tried every door handle, but they were still locked. I remember whispering to myself, oh my God," over and over. I dropped down to the floor of the back seat, curling up tight, trying to make myself invisible. Minutes passed. Then I heard the faint sound of a car approaching, distant sirens, echoing. He must have heard them too, because his footsteps got faster, heavier, moving toward the car. The engine turned off. Silence, then a soft tapping on the trunk. 3 knocks. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. I heard him whisper something, too low to make out, and then the crunch of his boots fading away into the dark. The sirens grew louder, filling the air with this strange mix of hope and terror. I stayed on the floor, shaking, until I saw flashing red and blue lights wash over the car's interior. A flashlight beam swept through the window, and a voice yelled, "Police. Anyone inside?" I sat up, tears streaming down my face. They pulled me out, and I remember the cold air hitting me like a slap. The car was empty. The driver was gone, just vanished. They searched the entire area that night, every alley, every lot, every warehouse. Nothing. All they found was a small, half-empty coffee cup in the front holder, and fingerprints that didn't match any database. After that night, I didn't sleep for 2 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the red and blue lights washing over the metal walls of that warehouse, the empty driver's seat, the open gravel lot behind it. I stayed in the police station until dawn, giving the same statement over and over, my voice breaking halfway through. The cops were kind, but I could tell they didn't really know what to make of it. The car wasn't stolen, at least not officially. The plate was real but registered to someone 3 states away, an older man who swore his Civic had been sitting in his garage the whole week. They asked me 1,000 questions. What did he look like? What route he took? What he said exactly? I kept hearing my own answers blur together. All I could really remember were small things: the smell of old coffee, the way the locks clicked at the same time, the tone in his voice when he said we just need to make one stop. When they finally let me go, the sun was coming up. Campus was quiet, dew on the grass, birds already starting. I remember thinking how unfair it was that the world looked so normal after what had just happened. Jenna wouldn't let me stay alone, so I crashed in her dorm for a week. Every sound outside made me jump, even when the cleaning crew rolled their carts down the hallway. Every night I dreamed about the click of those locks. 2 days later, a detective named Rogers asked me to come back in. He said they'd found the car again, parked less than a mile from the warehouse, abandoned behind an old distribution plant. The weird part? The doors were unlocked this time, but the driver's seat was pushed all the way back, like someone taller had been driving. And there were muddy footprints on the inside of the trunk. I felt sick hearing that. They'd run the fingerprints again, but still no matches. Rogers said it was possible the guy had used fake plates and swapped the VIN number. Apparently it happens more than people think. Still, he looked unsettled. Before I left, he asked if I'd ever used Lyft before that night. When I said yes, he nodded slowly, like something clicked. A week later, campus security sent out an alert email. Students are advised not to take ride shares from off campus after midnight until further notice. They never mentioned me by name, but everyone kind of knew. People whispered. For a while I tried to convince myself it was over. Finals came, life kept moving. But small things started happening that made my stomach knot all over again. Once, late at night, I got a notification from Lyft. Your driver Daniel has arrived. I hadn't ordered a ride. I deleted the app immediately, thinking it was a glitch. Another time, I found a folded paper under my windshield wiper. Just a receipt from a gas station on Harper Avenue, the same road that cut through the industrial area. On the back, written in shaky pen, were the words, "Shortcut saved me 10 minutes." My hands were shaking so badly I dropped it. I showed the note to Rogers. He took it seriously but said there were no cameras in that lot. He told me they'd look into it and reminded me to always call campus security if I saw anything strange. I nodded, pretending that would make me feel safer. A few weeks after finals, I drove home for summer break. My parents noticed I was quieter but didn't press. I kept telling myself it was distance, that I'd left it all behind in Detroit. Then, around mid-July, I got a call from Rogers. His tone was different this time, softer, like he didn't want to scare me. He said they'd finally gotten something from a nearby warehouse camera. It was grainy footage, timestamped the night of the incident. You could see my Lyft pulling up, the driver getting out, walking toward the back of the building, and then another figure stepping out of the shadows behind the car. 2 people, but when the second man approached the driver, the video glitched, static for 3 seconds, and when it cleared, both of them were gone. The car door opened, closed again, and the headlights turned off by themselves. Rogers said they were still trying to determine who that second person was, but I could hear in his voice he didn't think he'd ever know. For months, I kept replaying that night in my head. I wondered if the man who drove me there had actually been working alone. Maybe he thought he was taking me somewhere to hand me off to someone else. Maybe he never meant for me to see anything. Sometimes I try to convince myself the second person was just a shadow, a trick of the camera. But deep down I know that's not true. Because a few weeks ago, when I was back on campus, I walked past the library parking lot around midnight and saw a gray Civic idling under the streetlight, same make. Same color. The driver's seat was empty, but the headlights were on. The engine was running. And when I got close enough to glance at the dash, I saw something that made my skin crawl. The rideshare tablet mounted to the console, glowing softly, waiting. On the screen was my name, pick up, Emily R., 12:03 a.m. I swear, I hadn't ordered a thing. I turned and ran straight back to my dorm. When I looked again from the window upstairs, the car was gone. Just tire marks glistening in the wet pavement. Now, whenever I drive at night, I can't help but glance in the rearview mirror, half expecting a gray Civic to fall in line behind me, keeping its distance, waiting for another detour. He said it was just a shortcut, but there was nothing short about that night. I travel a lot for work, so I've taken more Uber rides than I can count. Airports, hotels, late-night drop-offs, nothing unusual. But this one night last December still keeps me awake sometimes. It was December 22nd, 2022. I remember because it was snowing hard, and I had a 5:30 a.m. flight to Denver. My plan was simple: pack up, grab a few hours of sleep, then book an Uber at around 3:45 a.m. to the airport. My place was in the outskirts of Pittsburgh, quiet, older neighborhood, not a lot of traffic at that hour. At 3:41, I opened the app. The map flickered for a second, probably the bad weather, but then it showed a nearby car already waiting. Name, Tom. Rating, 4.96. White Toyota Camry. Arrival, 2 minutes. That's fast, I remember thinking. The driver texted almost immediately. Morning. Just outside your street. White Camry. Everything seemed normal. The app said he'd arrived, so I grabbed my bag and stepped outside. The air felt heavy, wet with snow, and the neighborhood was dead silent. Sure enough, there was a white Camry idling under the streetlight, exhaust curling into the cold air. I waved, the headlights blinked once, and I climbed inside. It smelled faintly like pine and old cologne. The driver was middle-aged, maybe mid-40s, with a short beard and a dark jacket. He gave me a polite smile through the mirror. Airport, right? Yeah, I said, buckling in. He nodded, typed something into the GPS, and started driving. At first, everything felt completely routine. We made small talk, holiday travel, the weather, airport chaos. His voice was soft but kind of flat, like someone reading from a script. I figured he was just tired. The snow kept falling thicker, muffling everything outside. The roads were empty, the city asleep. At one point, he said something that stuck with me. Funny thing about airports this late, some people never make their flight. He laughed a little after that. I did too, awkwardly, not sure what he meant. Around 4:05, I realized I hadn't seen a single other car since we left my neighborhood. No trucks, no taxis, nothing. It was just us, cutting through the white silence. I checked my phone to see how far we were. But the app was weird, my trip wasn't showing up at all. Usually, you can see the map and your route in real time, right? Mine was blank. Just the home screen. I frowned, refreshed it, even force-closed it, but it stayed the same. No active trip. Hey, weird question, I said, trying to sound casual. My app's not showing the ride. Is it showing on your end? He glanced in the mirror. His eyes met mine for a split second, dark, unreadable. Then he said, "It's fine. Probably bad signal out here." He smiled again, but something about it felt wrong. Forced, the road started getting narrower, lined with tall pine trees and no streetlights. I didn't remember taking this route before. The GPS voice wasn't even talking anymore. Just silenced. I tried opening Google Maps, but there was no signal. My phone just showed searching. That's when I noticed something else. His phone, the one on his dashboard, wasn't showing the Uber interface either. It was just a blank GPS map with no route highlighted. Are we still on the way to the airport? I asked. He didn't answer for a second. Then he said, "Yeah. Just taking a faster road." His tone had changed. Flatter. Colder. Something in my stomach twisted. I laughed nervously. "Okay, just making sure. My flight's pretty soon." He didn't reply. Just gripped the steering wheel tighter. After maybe 10 more minutes, the snow eased up a little. That's when I noticed the sign we passed, Oak Hollow Road, dead end. I turned toward him. "Hey, man, this doesn't go to the airport." He didn't even glance my way. His eyes were fixed on the road ahead. "We're almost there," he said quietly. Then, he smiled again, barely, like a reflex, and I swear, it made my chest go cold. Something about the way he said it made me grab my phone again, even though there was still no signal. I typed out a text anyway. "If anything happens, I'm in a white Camry, heading toward Oak Hollow." I pressed send, hoping it would go through once we hit service again. When I looked up, I noticed the clock on the dashboard flicker. For half a second, it showed 12 a.m. Then it went back to 4:19. We reached the end of the road. A thick wall of trees loomed ahead, the snow glowing faintly under the headlights. The car slowed to a stop. I felt every muscle in my body tensed. He turned to me slowly and said, almost whispering, "We're here." I stared at him, frozen. "This isn't the airport," I said. He tilted his head slightly. "You wanted a ride," he murmured. "I gave you one." I reached for the door handle. It wouldn't open. Locked. Then, without warning, the car's interior lights flickered. For a split second, I saw his reflection in the mirror, and it wasn't the same face. His eyes looked hollow, gray, like glass marbles. Then everything went dark. When I came to, I was slumped sideways against the passenger door. The car was still, the engine dead silent. For a second, I thought maybe I'd fallen asleep mid-ride, that I'd just dreamed the whole thing, but then I looked around, and my stomach dropped. The windows were fogged from the inside, the windshield covered in frost. The headlights were off, but faint moonlight spilled through the glass, enough for me to see my breath clouding the air. My phone lay on the floor near my feet. It was 5:07 a.m. That couldn't be right. If we'd left my house around 3:45, we should have been at the airport an hour ago. I sat up slowly, my heart pounding. The driver's seat was empty. The keys were still dangling in the ignition, and the door on his side was slightly open, snow drifting in around the edges. I didn't move for maybe a full minute. I just listened. Nothing. No wind, no birds, no traffic, not even the hum of a distant highway. Just complete, suffocating silence. "Hello?" I said quietly, my voice shaking. No answered. I opened my door carefully, half expecting him to jump out from somewhere. But outside, it was just still. We were parked in what looked like a small clearing surrounded by trees. No buildings, no road signs, no streetlights. The snow around the car was untouched, no footprints except for one set leading away into the woods. They looked fresh, shallowed. I picked up my phone and tried to call someone, anyone. No service. I tried again. Same result. My text from earlier, the one I tried to send, still showed as sending. I don't remember making the decision to move. I just knew I had to get out of there. I grabbed my bag, stepped into the snow, and started walking down what looked like a narrow dirt road leading away from the clearing. Every few seconds, I'd glance behind me, half expecting to see headlights, or that same hollow-eyed face staring back. After maybe 15 minutes, I started hearing something, the faint hum of a highway. Relief hit me so hard I almost cried. I followed the sound until I stumbled out of the trees onto a small 2-lane road. A passing pickup truck slowed down when they saw me waving like a lunatic. The driver, an older guy, rolled down his window. "You all right, son?" I told him I needed to get to the airport, that my Uber driver had dropped me off in the middle of nowhere. He frowned. There's no airport this way. You're about 20 miles east of town. He let me in, and I swear, the first thing I did was check my app again. Still no trip history. No charges. No record that a driver named Tom ever picked me up. When I finally got to the airport, the sun was coming up. I missed my flight, but I didn't care. I just sat in the terminal, shaking, watching people move around like nothing had happened. I tried telling the Uber support chat what happened, but they said there were no active drivers in my area that night because of a snowstorm. I thought maybe it was a glitch. Maybe I'd mixed up the times or the driver info. But then something happened 2 weeks later that made it all worse. A news alert popped up on my phone. Abandoned vehicle found in rural Pittsburgh County identified as missing Uber driver's car. White Toyota Camry. The article said the car had been missing for over a month. The driver, a man named Thomas, had last been seen leaving the airport area late one night before disappearing. I froze. The picture they showed of him, same face, same beard, same polite smile. The only difference? His eyes. In the photo, his eyes were warm, alive, not the empty, glassy ones I saw in that mirror. I didn't sleep for 2 nights after that. I kept going back to my app, checking the past trips tab, hoping something would appear, anything that could prove I didn't imagine it. But every time, it was just blanked. I even looked at my payment history, but there was nothing. No charge. No ride. No Tom. And yet, when I opened the favorites section a few days later, the one that shows drivers you've rated before, there was one name sitting there, Tom. I swear I never wrote that. Sometimes, late at night, I'll see that same model of car drive past my apartment. Always white. Always the same dull headlights. It never stops, never slows down, just passes by like a ghost repeating its route, and I can't help but wonder if I'm the only passenger who's ever made it out, because whoever, or whatever, picked me up that night, it still knows where I live. I've been driving rideshare for a few years, mostly night shifts when the city quiets down, the streets slick with fog or rain, and the passengers get interesting. I've had a fair share of drunk students and late-night bar-goers, but nothing prepared me for the night of October 16, 2021. It was around 1:50 a.m. when I got the ping. A solo rider, a woman, just a few blocks away in an older part of town. The fog was thick that night, clinging to every street lamp and lamppost, muting colors into soft gray washes. You could barely see past 50 feet, and the occasional headlights would catch droplets of moisture, scattering them like tiny stars. I pulled up to the address, a narrow street lined with Victorian houses and untrimmed hedges, and saw her standing there, all bundled up in a long coat with the hood down. She didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't say a word. Just looked straight ahead. Her hands were tucked in her pockets, and when I rolled down my window, she asked softly for the destination. Her voice was calm, almost monotone. Mapleview Cemetery, she said. I hesitated for a second, thinking maybe I misheard. That's the cemetery? I asked, trying to keep the tone casual. Yes, she replied. No explanation, no hesitation. I shrugged, thinking some people had late-night visits or memorials. I unlocked the doors, she slid in quietly, and buckled her seatbelt without another word. I noticed she didn't place a bag or anything on the seat. She just sat there, shoulders stiff, eyes staring out the window into the fog. The drive started normally. I turned on the headlights and the wipers, the road slick and glistening. Occasionally, a shadow would move through the fog, a stray cat, a stray leaf, maybe a piece of debris. Every time I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, she was still looking out the window, calm, expressionless. We didn't talk. I made small comments, typical driver stuff. Rough night? Long day? Nothing. She didn't respond. Not even a nod. Just staring. I remember feeling a shiver creep up my spine, even though the heater was on. There was something unnerving about the quiet, not the comfortable quiet of a car alone, but a heavy, expectant silence that pressed in from all sides. About halfway to the destination, I took a turn down a narrower road, the fog so thick it was like driving through a cloud. Trees on either side loomed like dark sentinels. And that's when I noticed it. The air around her seat felt unnaturally cold. I could see my breath fog up even though the heater was on full blast. I tried to convince myself it was the weather, or maybe I was imagining it. But every instinct in me told me something was off. We finally reached the cemetery entrance. The gates were closed, dark and silent except for the soft moonlight reflecting off the iron. I stopped the car and turned to her. "This is it," I said. She didn't move. She didn't speak. She didn't unbuckle the seatbelt. I opened the door for her, and when I looked back, she was gone. No footsteps, no coat on the ground, nothing. Just the seatbelt still fastened, the back seat ice cold. I sat there for a full minute, thinking I was hallucinating, thinking maybe she just slipped out the side. I checked all around the car, the lot, the cemetery path, the foggy edges of the road. Nothing. Finally, I pulled out my phone to check the ride history. The name she used? Eleanor Whitmore. I had a weird sinking feeling and did a quick search online. What I found made my stomach drop. Eleanor Whitmore had died in that cemetery 10 years ago. I didn't know whether to call the cops or just drive away. I couldn't explain what I'd just experienced. The seatbelt was still fastened. The back seat was cold enough to see my own breath. And the air in the car felt different, heavy, like someone had just stepped out and left a shadow behind. I drove home that night in silence, not touching my radio. Every glance in the rearview mirror made me flinch. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still there, somewhere in the fog. When I got home, I left the car running in the driveway for a long while, staring at the back seat, half expecting her to reappear. But it was empty. Just me. And the cold. I still drive nights, but I avoid that street now. And every time the fog rolls in thick, I can't help but remember her quiet stare, the ice-cold seat, and the name that shouldn't exist. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her sitting there, silent, motionless, staring out the fogged window. Even in my apartment, I could feel the chill in the air, like she'd somehow followed me home. I kept replaying that drive, over and over, trying to make sense of it. The next morning, I called Lyft support, hoping someone would help me rationalize it. I explained everything, the pickup, the destination, her seatbelt still fastened, the icy cold back seat. The representative paused for a long time, then said in a low, hesitant tone, "Sir, we don't have any record of that ride. Or that passenger." I froze. My stomach dropped. I repeated myself, double-checked the account, and she assured me nothing. No trip request, no driver assignment, no record of anyone named Eleanor Whitmore. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was a prank, maybe I had just picked up someone in the fog without realizing. But my instincts told me otherwise. I couldn't stop thinking about the cemetery. That night, I drove past it, careful, hesitant, the mist curling over the gravestones. I parked a block away, peered through the iron gates, and my breath caught in my throat. There, under the flickering moonlight, I saw a gravestone with the name Eleanor Whitmore, dates clearly etched, 1984-2011. The deeper I got into it, the more I realized the details lined up too perfectly to be coincidence. Her ride request, her silence, the cold back seat, it was all eerily specific, almost as if she had orchestrated it. A few days later, I returned to the scene during the day. The cemetery was empty, peaceful. I walked among the stones, taking photos, trying to rationalize. Nothing happened. But when I looked at the photos later, one of them made my blood run cold, the back seat of my car, the leather gleaming in the morning light, and in the faint reflection of the window, I could see her face. Pale, unmoving, staring back at me. I dropped the phone. From that day on, I couldn't drive at night without glancing in the rearview mirror. Every time I did, I swore I saw her in the back seat, never moving, never speaking, always watching. Some nights, the seat would feel cold again, even with the heater blasting. I told a friend about it eventually. He laughed nervously, said maybe it was just stress, or my imagination running wild. But then he brought up something I hadn't known. Eleanor Whitmore's death had been mysterious. She'd gone missing one night, never returned home, and weeks later, her body had been found buried in that very cemetery. The police had closed the case as a tragic accident, but nobody really knew how she had ended up there. I never saw her physically again, but the presence never left me. The ice-cold seat, the quiet weight in the back of the car, the reflection in the rearview mirror, it followed me. Even years later, when I moved to a different city, I kept one rule: I never, ever drive alone at night without double-checking the back seat. Sometimes, when the fog rolls in thick, I think I can still hear her whisper, just barely audible, as if riding along behind me, "Thank you for the ride." And I swear. I look in the mirror, and for a moment, I see a pale face, staring back, calm, silent, waiting. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share it with someone who loves a good scare. I read every comment, so let me know, what would you have done if you were in that driver's seat? Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes, the quietest passengers never really leave. Until next time, sleep tight. See you again, Jenny Noir.